Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a special Colonial Williamsburg Foundation update. We are coming to you live from right here in the Hennage Auditorium at the Art Museums at Colonial Williamsburg. Whether you're joining us from the state of Virginia or anywhere else across the country, we are thrilled to have you here with us to get an update on the important work that we do here day in and day out. My name is Sani Silvan Noinen, and I'm the Chief Development Officer here at the Foundation, and it is indeed my privilege to welcome you all to this evening's program. Joining me here on stage, I have several colleagues. I'd like to introduce each of them to you. To my immediate left is Cliff Fleet, our President and CEO, and the Colin G. and Nancy N. Campbell Distinguished Presidential Chair. Next to Cliff is Ron Hurst, Chief Mission Officer and Senior Vice President for Education and Historic Resources, and the Carlisle H. Humelstein Chief Curator. Then we have Gary Sandling, the Teresa A. and Lawrence C. Salamino, Vice President for Historic Area Operations. And finally, Mia Nagawicki, the Royce R. and Catherine M. Baker, Vice President for Education Strategy and Civic Engagement. Had to cheat on all of those titles, admittedly. And for the next hour, we will explore together how we are bringing history to life, preserving the town of Williamsburg, this extraordinary place, and educating our guests and our audiences. And today's program is designed to give you an inside look on some of the Foundation's more recent work in 2024. And throughout the event, you'll hear directly from my colleagues here on stage, as well as from several of our valuable colleagues across the Foundation through video. And these stories reflect the passion, creativity, and dedication that make Colonial Williamsburg a living treasure. But before we dive in, I want to take a moment to thank you all, our supporters, for making everything we do possible. It is the CW Fund that is really the underpinning of everything we do here. It's the foundation for the Foundation, if you will. And every dollar you contribute goes directly into the support of the work we do and to educate the audience and to accomplish our mission. So we're excited to engage with you. There will be a live Q&A happening on YouTube, and you may also send us questions either via email, vpdevelopment@cwf.org, or post those questions on YouTube, and we'll get to them in the Q&A section at the end of this program, get to as many of them as we can. So let us begin this journey together. To start, I'd like to invite President Fleet to say a few words and a brief overview of where we stand today. Cliff.
Okay, thank you, Sani, for that warm introduction, and welcome to everyone. And for those of you who cannot be in Williamsburg with us during this time of year, I think you know what a very special place it is. Last weekend, we completed our first of 3 grand illuminations, and I can just say Williamsburg at the holiday season is Williamsburg at its best. It is wonderful to see all of the educational programming, the celebrations, the people that fill the streets, the incredible decorations on the houses that have been put together by so many dedicated volunteers and others. It truly is a special place. And for those of you who are here or are coming, welcome. For those of you who can't be with us, we hope you can join us again in another year so that we can allow you to participate in this very, very special place at this very special time of year. This evening, though, we are thinking about more than just Williamsburg at this moment, and I think it gives us an opportunity to reflect on what Colonial Williamsburg has done over the course of this past year, thanks in large part to your generosity and to your support. And in the spirit of the season, where we have the 12 days of Christmas, I'd like to think about what are the 12 months of 2024 in terms of Colonial Williamsburg. And I did put together a few notes that I think show some of the highlights and things that we've been able to accomplish this year. So I thought I would share that list with you all. In January of this year, we launched our branding campaign, The Revolution is Here, which will lead and guide all of our activities as we lead up to 2026. In February, we were the lead on the Today Show for Black History Month with the work that we're doing at the Bray School. In March, we hosted the second of 3 national planning meetings leading up to 2026, where we welcomed hundreds of state planners and museum professionals to Williamsburg in a spectacular meeting. And the third and final one will be in March of next year. In April, we discovered archaeological remains at the building of our new Archaeology Center. And yes, that is ironic. in terms of Ron. But this was a spectacular archaeological feature of a home from the 17th century that was an incredibly rich find, and I'll let Ron talk a little bit about that in his section. In May, we announced that we had discovered the Revolutionary War barracks that were built here in Williamsburg at the time of the American Revolution, and we do plan to open that site in 2026 and beyond to an archaeological dig. In June, we reopened the Charlton Stage, which is the heart of our award-winning theater program, and we were featured again on the Today Show, this time for Juneteenth. In July, we broke ground on the Shoe, our new par 3 9-hole golf course. In August, some of you may have joined me in New York, where we launched the commemoration of the 200th anniversary of the Lafayette Tour, and we were featured on the New York Times in a front-page article, and our own Mark Snyder is recreating much of that tour over the course of the next year. In September, we publicly launched our iCivics game, which I'll let Mia talk about in her remarks, and we have a second one that is currently underway. We were featured by Politico in a wide-ranging piece that encouraged Americans of all political persuasions to come to Colonial Williamsburg. And we opened our new gardening site, and because that wasn't quite enough, we opened a new archaeological exhibit at our museums, which is spectacular. In October, Lafayette on his tour came to Williamsburg to commemorate his 200th flyover, and we were blessed to have French jets who came over from France to do a flyover over the historic area as part of that tour. We also launched our Revolutionary Rhetoric Tournament for high school civic and debate, which will lead up to 2026. And we opened our new home for the Teachers Institute, which is a spectacular addition to their portfolio and a fitting home for this award-winning and wide-ranging, very powerful program. In November, we dedicated the Bray School. We also dedicated the African Baptist Meeting House Cemetery. We were awarded being the best historic resort in the nation, and the Washington Post featured us on the front page, and CBS Sunday Morning also did a piece on us. And in December, we are having the beta launch of History.org. We, of course, have 3 grand illuminations, and we are finishing the 5-year archaeological dig at Custis Garden, which has been nothing short of spectacular in terms of the knowledge gained about gardening practices at the time period of the American Revolution and the role of the enslaved people in building and sustaining a horticultural society. It has been nothing short of a spectacular year here at Colonial Williamsburg, and none of this would happen or could happen without your support. The donor support for this year's effort has been nothing short of remarkable, and although we have a few more weeks to go, we are recording yet another record year for the foundation in terms of fundraising, which is absolutely heartwarming as we think about advancing our work as we approach 2026. The coverage has been quite strong over the course of the year for the work that we're doing to shape our nation, and we are assuming a leadership role in the nation's planning as it leads towards 2026. What is guiding all of our efforts has been the educational plan that we put in place several years ago about historic preservation, education, and civic engagement. And so what we want to do this evening is highlight some of those aspects and where we are with them and talk about where we're going as we approach 2026 and beyond. So let's turn to a video on historic preservation.
Colonial Williamsburg is in the midst of the most activity since the 1960s.
And that's thanks to the generosity of friends like you. I'm Ellen Peltz.
I'm Rachel West. Here's a look at some of the things we've been able to accomplish this year.
And what we have to look forward to next year. So Matt, this has been a huge year for the Williamsburg Bray School, which we are standing in right now, but it really does not look like it looks 12 months ago. So can you tell me a little bit about what has happened here this past year?
It doesn't look at all like it did 12 months ago. So it's been a very busy year. A lot of people have been involved, a lot of Colonial Williamsburg staff as well as specialized contractors to get us to this point. The year started off with a lot of structural work, making sure that the building was stable and safe and well preserved into the future. And so we started with that in the very first phases. And now where we really are is in the finished work. So you're seeing a room that's finished right now, and that's all based on research that occurred while the project was ongoing. So pieces like these behind us, those are pieces of the original 1760s chair rail that were found reused throughout the building. So those bits and pieces help inform us and tell us what the building looked like. And you're seeing around us right now the millwork that was reproduced to represent all of that evidence.
That's amazing. I love that this is kind of a combination of things that you have reproduced, but really the bones of the building and so much of the original material is still here, right?
Right, yeah, it's remarkably intact. This building, really we haven't done anything like this since the 1980s when Weatherburns was restored. This is now the 89th original building. An incredible amount of original material framing. We're actually, around us are the 1760s floors, which are still intact.
Wow, that's incredible. Okay, so what's next for the building in 2025? What can we look forward to?
So we're actually going to finish the building in 2025. So spring of 2025 is our goal, to have the building finished, and it'll be open to the public at that point. So the other first floor rooms as well as second floor will be finished.
That's very cool. This is such an amazing story to tell, and I know your team has been working on it since this building was identified in 2020.
Right.
That must be a really exciting kind of milestone to hit.
It is. It's been an amazing project. A lot of challenges, but that's what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know the magazine has been a very different project from Bray School. I've heard you talk about how it doesn't really give up any of its secrets very easily.
Right, yeah, the magazine's completely different. Everything that the Bray tells us, Bray School tells us, the magazine doesn't. And that has a lot to do with how it was used over time and its condition. So, you know, obviously originally built as a magazine for storage of the guns and gunpowder and other military items. But after that, it's used as a market house, a stable, a church, and all those changes to the building altered it. So a lot of the evidence is difficult to read. So we're working very hard so that we can restore it accurately back to its appearance in the 18th century.
That's very cool. And I know you've talked about different teams kind of helping out with a lot of the work you're doing, archaeologists being involved, curators obviously being involved in this. I mean, preservation seems like it just involves so many things. What is it like doing that work here at Colonial Williamsburg when so many teams are involved?
It's amazing doing this work at Colonial Williamsburg. There's no place really in the United States that has the skill sets that this foundation has, which makes this work both interesting and possible. And so it's everybody at the foundation is involved in these projects and making sure that they're successful.
Well, thanks so much, Matt. Keep up the good work. I hope you get a nap in 2025.
Thank you.
Hey Jack, how are you?
I'm great.
Good, good. I was realizing as we're standing here, I can see like 5 different sites for archaeology projects from this one spot.
that's right,
You
that's
have
right.
been busy this year.
Oh my God, 2024 was huge, big year for us.
Crazy,
Yeah.
crazy. Okay, well let's dig into it.
Okay, let's, nice.
Let's start with the Kimball Archaeology Center, since we can hear that kind of that construction in the background. Tell us about that this year.
Yeah, absolutely. So we broke ground on it. Well, actually we broke ground on it last year, but it's really starting to come out of the ground now. And this facility, yeah, I know, we can't stop. You can't stop. This 40,000 square foot facility is going to house our labs, our collection. It's going to be open to the public.
Wow.
We'll have interactive activities in there. I mean, it's really going to transform how we do archaeology and how our guests see archaeology.
Yeah.
And you know, it wouldn't be archaeology if there wasn't a surprise.
It's the best surprise.
It was, yeah. So we found a late 17th or early 18th century house. When we started digging the foundations for the building, we found the foundation for a building that was there hundreds of years ago.
goodness.
And so now we're going to be able to put a glass floor in the new building in order to look down on those foundations. So our guests will be standing on an archaeological site in an archaeological building with all the artifacts from the almost 100 years of excavation we've done here. So
Wow.
it's a great opportunity for
That's
us.
amazing. That's amazing. Okay, and then right here, we're standing right now at the site of the Custis project. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Custis Square, we've been excavating here for 5 years.
My goodness.
2019, we started the project, longest sustained ongoing project we've ever undertaken here at the foundation.
Wow.
And excavations are finally starting to wrap up. But in those 5 years, we have really understood this site so much more than we did when we started. The goal was to find the garden. Custis's garden, one of the most ornate gardens in the country, and we found it. At least we found a portion of it. This is a
Wow.
4-acre site. There's a
Yeah.
lot left for us to do. So we found the garden connected to the house. It's 160 foot long by 204 feet wide. And we have just an amazing amount of detail on it. We know where espaliered fruit trees were growing along the fence. We've even found, wait for it,
Oh.
the locations of the 3 lead statues that were in this garden.
No way.
Yeah, I know.
Oh my goodness.
That's brand new. We just
That's
discovered
cool.
it a
Yeah,
couple
I
weeks
hadn't
ago.
heard that.
Yeah. So anyhow, we have the opportunity to really restore this garden as accurately as we possibly can.
Wow, that's very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, and then moving on this way, so I'm looking at the Bray School kind of across the way here, and I know archaeology had a part to play in that as well.
We did, yeah. We excavated at the original site of the Bray School in 2024. And those excavations revealed a lot of new details, including the location of what we think is a little vegetable garden that was there when the students were there. So we took that information and we actually recreated the garden on the new spot right behind the Bray School. So when you come to see it, there will be a vegetable garden there, exactly where, well, transposed anyway,
Yeah.
exactly where it was on the original site.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's so cool. That
Yeah.
adds such an element of authenticity to the whole thing.
Yeah.
I mean, that project is amazing to begin with, but I love that archaeology and preservation are working together
Yeah,
on that.
absolutely.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And then next door to that, First Baptist, what happened there this year?
Yeah, another great example of archaeology and preservation working together. So we took all of the archaeological information, particularly related to the burials. So we discovered 62 individuals buried there. Discovered that they are the ancestors of the modern First Baptist Church community. And this year we marked them with stone markers. So each individual now has a stone marker shaped as to whether they're an adult, a child, or an infant. And that was dedicated just this year. And it is a powerful, powerful site. You
Yeah.
can't stand there and see one of the infant burials and not be moved. So these people will never be lost again.
I love that. It's amazing. Okay, and then straightforward, this is the site of the newest thing coming in 2025, right?
Yeah, that's right. So the Peter Scott excavation. So we're going to be excavating right across the street from Bruton Parish, right on Duke of Gloucester Street, where
Very
the old
cool.
demonstration garden used to be.
Oh, yeah.
The Colonial Garden. And we're going to be excavating to find the house and site and workshop of Peter Scott, a very prominent furniture maker here in town. He's making furniture for everybody here in Williamsburg. House was burned down in 1776 by Continental soldiers. It was never rebuilt. So it was burned down accidentally, by the way.
Oh,
They
okay.
didn't, it wasn't
Okay.
intentional.
Well, that's an archaeologist's dream, right?
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So we're going to go to that site and excavate it here in 2025, and we're going to, again, right there on Duke of Gloucester Street. Everyone's going to get to see what we're doing, so it's a great opportunity for us.
That's awesome. Wow. Well, you have not been busy at all. It feels like you should, add a couple more projects to your plate.
Bring it on. We'll
Yeah.
take it.
Sounds good. Thanks, Jack.
Yeah, you're welcome.
It's been quite the year. Goodness gracious. Ron, I know you like to deal in facts and science and primary sources, but how does a year like this make you feel?
Well, Sonny, it's really remarkable. As Ellen said in the video piece, we have got more restoration, reconstruction, research, archaeology going forward now than we have had at any time in the last 60 years. And why are we doing that? Because we want to be able to tell a full and complete story of what happened here on the eve of and just after the American Revolution. And although Colonial Williamsburg is 98 years old, there's still so much to learn. So, for example, at the site of the Custis Garden, we've already retrieved in 5 years over 350,000 artifacts from that one site. So we're learning more every day at levels that weren't even imagined 50 years ago. As Jack said, for example, the pollen analysis next to the fruit trees in the Custis Garden tells us that they were plums, apples, and cherries. So we're finding out things that hadn't been dreamt of before, and that's all aimed toward telling all the stories that happened here in the 18th century. And it really would not be possible without our supporters. They make all the magic possible because the work we do is tedious and intricate and exacting, and it has to be done exactly the right way. We want to be sure we've got it right. So it requires that kind of support, and we are so incredibly thankful for that support.
So how do we, regarding the powder magazine, say, or the magazine, how can we be sure that we're doing it as it's supposed to be, how it's going to look?
You know, again, science comes into play, and so does historical research. So as Matt said, the powder magazine, though it's an original building and has survived since 1715, has been through so many different kinds of uses and been altered every time. It's been a market house, a livery stable, a school, a Baptist church. And we have to carefully go through all of that evidence, and we're finding lots and lots of new material. So for example, we were able to show that the reconstructed protective wall around the outside of the building, reconstructed in the 1930s, was not 10 feet tall, but in fact 6 feet tall, so we've lowered it back down to its original height. We're finding that the building had a fireproof clay tile roof, which makes a tremendous amount of sense because it's a building full of explosives in a city full of chimneys. Why put a flammable roof on it? But the archaeology has answered the question. We found thousands of fragments of the roofing tiles. It had leaded casement windows. We found the location of the flagpole. So all of these things come together, not just archaeology, not just architectural research, but documentary research, working through our incredible historians here at the foundation, and it all brings together a picture that allows us to say with a great deal of certainty, we've got it right.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Let's take another look at a few of our historic trades next.
Hi. So tell us about this new garden site and what it is you've been doing to get it ready.
So first thing we did when we moved in here September 2nd was plant cover crops, so the clover and the rye, which helps improve our soil. And then we also planted our winter garden. So you'll find a lot of brassicas in there. Brassicas are kale, cabbage, collard, and a lot of the hardier flowers. If you're in a gentry garden, you would have flowers mixed in with your vegetables.
So more vegetables in the winter, but still some of the flowers to have that ornamental.
Always, yeah, always have that little bit of the ornamental. And then next spring, we'll plant the Sankofa Heritage Garden, right? So the Garden of Enslaved People, and then we'll also plant with our colleagues from the American Indian Encampment. We'll plant a garden with them. So we'll do corn, beans, squash, sunflowers. And then once we've gotten this all stabilized, it's time to think about where the trees go, where do all the perennials go. We still have bulbs to plant. So it'll be a good year or two before we're really up and looking like we've been here for a little bit.
Yeah, so when people come and visit you here, what can they expect to see and what can they talk with you about?
We always like to show them what the current project is. So if they're here in February, we'll have the hotbeds working. You're growing plants in a heated space that's warmed by horse manure. That's where we start our spring garden. There's always weeds. That's always something that always needs tending to. Pruning. So we're going to espalier fruit trees back on our fence. That takes 4 years to come to fruition before they're really formed really nicely. So that's always interesting to watch.
Oh, wow.
It's always good when you can grow something different and new and be successful at it, which is what gardeners wanted to do in the 18th century.
So how can people support your work and what you're doing out here?
Well, we love it when they visit. That's always the best. And if you can't come visit, watch us on the social media channels. Yeah, there's Facebook posts out there, and we're usually showing what we're doing in the season that it happens. And then send us a donation. That's a great way to support us, right? Gardener needs to buy seeds.
Very true. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Hey, Dre.
Hey, how you doing?
So Coach Livestock as a department is so much more than just the animals that we see throughout the historic area. Tell us a bit about what it is that your team does.
A lot of stuff behind the scenes. So pasture management, because we got to make sure that our pastures are healthy and safe for the animals, make sure there's not a lot of parasites in it. But also we got to keep the grass nice and green because we got guests that come here and see the pastures. Right. So we got to make sure that. Then also we got to look at nutrition, feeding the animals, make sure that our animals are healthy and make sure that they're safe so they can have that longevity of life. And then also behind the scenes stuff that we do like for the different trade shops in the historic area, doing carriage rides as well for the guests, and then actually putting the animals out there so the guests can come in and they can actually see the animals when they come and visit.
Yeah, how many carriage rides do you think that the team does in just a day or a week or a month?
We average 15 rides per carriage.
And what can people do when they're in a carriage ride? What can they experience?
You get a ride halfway through town. You get to look at the different buildings. I like it when guests come here and they get on the carriage ride first so they can actually map out where they want to go and what they actually want to see first.
That's really good advice. But tell us about some of the new additions that you've gotten this year.
We had one red Devon calf born this year. Her name is Uno. So we named her number 1. And then as far as our lesser longwood sheep, we had 8 lambs this year. And then for our Cleveland Bay program, we had 6 foals that we had this year.
Can guests see them out and about in the pastures when they're visiting?
Most of the young horses are being weaned. As soon as we can get them weaned, then we can get them out in the public. You can see Uno right now. She's right there in front of the brace school.
Oh, great.
So right there in the pasture in front of the brace school. So her and her mom is right there. And then as far as the lambs, they're growing up pretty fast. So they throughout the historic area as well. So.
Good, good. Some of the programming that you do, you touched on it earlier with carriages and things. How else are we using animals to show what it was like in the 18th century with our interpreters? How are we utilizing animals?
Help with the trades. We use horses doing plowing demonstrations. We have the sheep to show grazing and control with cutting down on the weed population. And then moving stuff for the trade. So whether it be bricks, whether it be any type of metal work or anything for the coopers that will move up and down the street, and then guests get to see that.
Yeah, so it's so much more than just seeing them out and about, but it's how they were used in the 18th century as well, and to show an actual community at work here. Randolph Stable is a very exciting project because it brings more of our animals and the things that you do into the historic area for guests to be able to see. What are you looking forward to doing at this site when we get the stables built and you're able to bring over some of these animals?
That is going to be like the home base for the rare breeds. So you have a central location where you will get to see what we breed here and the different rare breed animals that we have here in one location. So it won't be all the animals there, but it'll be one representative of each animal that's there, so they could come to one location and they can see them.
So what else are you looking forward to in 25?
We're looking at more interpretation out there on the street. We're looking at increasing our carriage ride out there on the street, and then also we're looking at bringing in some more animals that would date back to the 17th, 18th century. Focus more with the rare breeds and the livestock. So we're looking at bringing in different chickens, geese, ducks, turkeys. So even pigeons. So we're looking at stuff like that. Might have a little surprise at the end. We might see about bringing in some Randall lineback oxen as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the oxen, you can see them out too as well. The horses, every pen, they're out working and doing their thing too.
And if they're not working, you can go over there to the Timpson Pasture right there on Nassau Street. They hang out over there.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Be with baby lambs running, that I'm not sure. Gary, how do offerings like historic gardening, rare breeds program, how does that help us accomplish our mission that the future may learn from the past?
Yeah, it's a great question. They, all the trades really help contribute to this sense of Williamsburg as a community, as a place at work, something that it helps add to the authenticity. It really feels like a place where you can imagine the past. And all of these interpreters who work there have built upon a body of knowledge that has been, just like the research work we do, decades of practice, decades of work, decades of experience to grow that knowledge and learn more and therefore share more with guests. And they're tangibles, right? We understand, baby lambs, we understand animals, we understand things to grow, how do we get our food? These are all things that people in different ways can relate to. They have stories about their own families and their experiences with animals and with crops, or even just some reflection that they've learned from their grandparents about life on a farm. So all those things provide tangible connections. They help people understand Williamsburg as a community and understand the lived experience of people on the eve of the Revolution in ways that you just can't, you don't get that from a book, right? And the scale and the scope of it here are what make it so extraordinary. There are more than 24 historic trades and skills. So that group alone represents an incredible body of knowledge that people from around the country and even the world seek out from time to time to learn from.
Excellent, thank you. And you mentioned training too. And I know we do a lot and for different, whether it's the skills or interpretation. What sort of training would a gardener perhaps go through?
So as true in the trades, an apprenticeship that can last 5 years or thereabouts with a graduated curriculum. So to learn a body of skills, obviously to read the history of gardening, but to do it, to demonstrate the know-how And that's true in all of the trades. And that research, that attention to historic practice, then to experience, to learn from someone more experienced, a journeyman or a master, is an integral part of that work. And it's made possible, so much of it is made possible through the generosity of donors to help with, Eve said, gardeners need seeds. Well, everything from materials and supplies to providing opportunities for travel and research, so to go other places to learn from others, and also to give us equipment, material to do all of this work. And the trades often work together, so it's a very collaborative work environment to show how things were done in the past and help people understand it in a really immediate way.
Thank you, Gary, and truly thanks to our donors for being seed planters, literally and figuratively. So that was our educational pillar, and now let's watch another video or two about our civic engagement.
Hey Heather, how are you? I'm good, Ellen, how are you? I'm good, thanks. I am so excited to be with you in this gorgeous place. This is the new home for the Teacher Institute, is that right?
It is. We have 2 dedicated classroom spaces on the first floor, as well as offices upstairs for the staff. And we even have offices downstairs for the summer staff and interns.
And the program celebrated its 35th anniversary this year?
It did.
Wow.
It did. 35 years of serving teachers and students across the country.
That's amazing.
This summer, we were able to bring 500 plus teachers on site to see and experience everything this beautiful town has to offer. Many of them describe it as life-changing, which is so cool to hear. And then we served an additional 200 plus teachers online, an impact of about 58,000 students.
My goodness, that's amazing.
It is.
And now the work that you are doing in your team is here on site and also beyond that online. What are some of the things that happened this year online, and what can we look forward to?
So this year we launched our first collaborative game with iCivics called Uncovering Loyalties. And so students are invited to interact with children from the past, so kind of kids their own age. Some of them are real historical actors that we know lived here in Colonial Williamsburg. Others are amalgamated from research, but they're able to talk with them and explore their surroundings and objects from our collections and determine if they think, based on what they find, if that individual is a loyalist or a patriot or sort of loyalist, sort of patriot. And so it really requires them to collect context clues and make decisions, which is great.
Very cool, very cool. Now, my kids have actually played the game.
And what they think.
They liked it, they liked it.
My oldest nephew is 12 and he's like, oh, I don't know, it's a little young for me. And then I look over and he's like sitting there playing it.
I know.
His mom's like, it's time to go to bed. He's like, but I'm still playing. And I'm
It's
like,
not as easy as you'd think.
Right,
it does
right.
require some work. Yeah, that's pretty great. So what's next in terms of what we can expect online?
So right now we are working on history.org. We just showed the board and our inaugural partners the kind of minimum viable product for history.org. A lot of excitement.
Yeah.
Our partners very much were saying, this is something we've all wanted to do. It's exciting to be a part of it. And we're really leaning in on the collaboration there. So we're working with museums from across the country and teachers from across the country, historians from across the country to build a comprehensive K-12 U.S. history and civic site. We're really hoping we can hit over 100 museums in the long run and really build this out to be kind of the quintessential K-12 education tool for teachers.
Wow. What an invaluable resource.
It really is. It's, we were just at the National Council for the Social Studies annual conference and we were kind of talking to teachers about it, and so many of them, like, you start to say resource and they're like, and then you say with primary sources and they're contextualized and they have analysis questions and they're scaffolded, and you start seeing them go, what? And they get really excited. And so a lot of teachers were just like, when can I use this site?
Yeah.
So we're hoping to start our closed beta early next year, which means we'll keep it closed to the public. We'll have the front-facing page, but we really want to make sure we do it right. We're giving teachers time who we invite in to give us feedback and tell us what's working and what's not working. But we anticipate sometime in summer 2025 opening it to public where everybody can see it.
And your team also handles a lot of other things, behind the scenes kind of things that I think folks don't necessarily know about.
Historians on my team have been working to update content to really make sure that we're hitting those high levels of historical accuracy and making sure that everything is accurate, that we've sourced the content that we've provided, so that if people have questions about what they see, they can see where our historians are getting the information, the sources that they're pulling from.
Well, thank you so much for all the work you're doing, Heather.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Ellen.
Yeah.
Hi, Julie.
Hey, Rachel.
So we are here in the heart of the historic area. I've got the Capitol building behind us, which is my personal favorite building. We have a program happening right down the street as well, one of our street theater programs. And I want to talk about something that helps support all of the things that are going on here at the foundation, and that's the Colonial Williamsburg Fund. What is the Colonial Williamsburg Fund? We have people watching who are very familiar with it, and we have people watching who've never heard about it before. So what exactly is the fund?
So the fund is the way that most people give to the CW Foundation. Last year, over 70,000 people gave, which is fantastic. It's a huge fund, actually. And the best part about it is unrestricted dollars for the foundation, meaning that our leadership can then pinpoint those dollars towards the greatest need or a place of investment that they're interested in real time. So it's a great tool. It's very flexible, and as I said, and it's for everyone.
Yeah, you said 70,000 people contributed just last year alone.
Yes.
That really adds up.
It
in
does.
the frame of things. So it is supporting things like repairing the sidewalks in the buildings and our interpreters. What else does it support?
Everything and anything here at CW. I mean, that's the beauty of the flexible dollar, of unrestricted. So, you know, as you said, it can be supporting sidewalks, it can be supporting an actor's costume, but it also really helps us think about sort of our foundational budget model.
Right.
And it's a big part of that. Last year, nearly $19 million was raised, and that's a big part of our financial model here at CW. And to have so much donor support as part of our annual budget, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It gets from all of those donors who participate year after year.
Right.
I mean, and that's the thing, they come back every year. So it's really just a great giving vehicle.
Yeah, so not just the physical, but the digital too. So our YouTube channel, our social media channels, are things we're putting together for teachers and educators. History.org is coming online here soon. We've heard from Heather talk about that. That's a very exciting initiative.
It is.
So the fund supports things like that too, right? Not just
absolutely
dollars that are going directly toward those projects. The dollars going to the fund also help support that.
Absolutely, and it really widens our footprint in terms of how we reach out to folks who have engaged with our digital content.
Right.
And allows us to sort of, have them in the CW community. And oftentimes, we're looking to what is happening in the digital space to even help us sort of drive our communication methodology for the CW Fund.
So how can people get involved with the fund?
Oh, it's easy. Go to the webpage, to the giving page. It's easy. Click on Make a Gift, and you'll have to give a little biographical info, your credit card, but it's a very, very quick and easy thing to do.
Cool. And are there other ways that they can give other than just online, through maybe legacy planning, through estate planning, things like that, IRAs, and that can help support the fund?
And even still through mail. But yes, there's a lot of different ways that they can give to the fund. Digital is easy. Getting on the web is really easy and fast, and a lot of folks do that now. But we, of course, accept donations and from whatever, channel you want to send it in on. So its impact, is, as you were saying, it's really widespread across the foundation and across all of our educational programs and our educational missions. So if it's, one thing to give to the CW Fund.
And every dollar adds up, right?
It does.
It helps support
quickly.
This place. Well, that's so great. Thank you so much, Julie.
Thanks, Rachel.
Well, we just heard some really cool things about both the Bob and Marion Wilson Teacher Institute as well as History.org. One celebrating its 35th anniversary, and the other one was just beta launched days ago. Mia, why are we spending so much time and effort on teachers and creating content for the classroom and for students?
What a wonderful question. I love talking about teachers. I believe that public education is the foundation of our democratic republic, and the best way to ensure the ongoing strength of the American experiment is by serving teachers. Teachers have a captive audience every year. Teachers have to teach American history, civics, foundational government. Unfortunately, schools have been divesting in these topics over the last couple of decades. Yet we hear from teachers over and over again how much they want and need additional professional development and additional free digital resources that they can deploy in their classroom in a minute. So we have the crown jewel of the Bob and Marion Wilson Teacher Institute celebrating its 35th year. Over the course of the history of that program, we have impacted well over 10 million students across the country and around the world, and that is truly sensational And I'm very excited to now be able to build on that legacy. We're continuing to invest in and prioritize the Teacher Institute, the on-site experience here, our beautiful new building, as well as online programming to provide high-quality professional learning to teachers wherever they are, whether or not they have the ability to physically come. And then when we think about history.org, that is the most ambitious K-12 history and civics project in a generation. And that Colonial Williamsburg is leading that charge is inspiring, and it's only possible because of the support of our donors. There are 55 million students in schools across this country. As we build out history.org and continue to shore up the Teacher Institute, I truly believe that we can reach each and every one of them with high quality history and civics education materials that will re-engage those students as citizens of this country and stewards of our democracy. So I feel extremely excited and fortunate to be here and to be a part of this really meaningful work.
And Heather mentioned in the video that her 12-year-old plays our first game, but I know there's a second game coming up as well.
Correct, yes. So we launched Uncovering Loyalties at the start of this school year, and that targets elementary school students. And it's the first game that iCivics has produced specifically for elementary students. And iCivics is the nation's leading civic education provider, and their games are played millions of times in schools across the country. So we're thrilled and delighted to have their first elementary-focused game. And we are far along in development on our next game. We have a working title of Declaration Investigation, but don't hold me to that. And this game targets middle school and high school students and looks at the United States Declaration of Independence, those Enlightenment ideals that it embodies, and then traces its legacy across the Atlantic world over the course of the Age of Revolutions. So 100 years, 4 continents, and tracing how these American ideals, these fundamental ideas that shaped our nation in the beginning and continue to shape it today, evolved over time and space. And think about how the American electorate and citizenry evolved those ideas themselves. So that game will launch in time for next school year, 2025-2026. So it will be in classrooms in time for the semi-quincentennial. We're very excited.
Say that again fast.
Semi-quincentennial, it's the word of the day.
Thank you, Mia. And now it is time to turn it over to you all. My messages are going hot here with questions, so we'll try to get to a few of these, and then we'll address and answer those offline that we don't get to today. I suppose not first, but one of the things that I know several are touching upon, we talked a lot about the educational mission of the foundation, but we also have some commercial assets. So perhaps Cliff, could you talk a little bit about our hospitality and how things are going?
Absolutely. I think as everybody's well aware, we are blessed to have some wonderful hospitality and real estate assets. And while COVID is certainly not an experience I think that any of us would want to have to go through again, the COVID experience did allow us to kind of reset how we thought about those assets and thought about the performance and operation of those assets. And I'm pleased to report that they are now very positive contributors to the financial performance of the foundation. We have had terrific results out of our hospitality assets and out of our real estate assets. And what that has enabled to happen here at the foundation is not only do those assets support our educational mission from an educational standpoint and from a delivery standpoint, but they're able to do so from a financial standpoint, which has enabled us to have actually the best financial year, although we have a few more weeks to go, in the history of the foundation. It's been a terrific year for us, which I think sets us up beautifully well for the next couple of years. But we could not have done it without your support and all the wonderful support we've had of donors over the past few years, and we look forward to continuing work over the next few years. So thank you all very much for that.
And there's a couple of questions relating to taverns as well. I know we've opened up Shields earlier this year, or opened it up to the public. And then there's a question about tunings. Is that on the horizon?
So just to reset, the question obviously is about taverns, and we have historically operated 4 taverns in the historic area. I think Shields was the last one to come online in the 1990s. We've had obviously Campbell's, Tunings, King's Arms, and Shields as the 4 taverns. When we came out of COVID, obviously we had to shut all the taverns down, like many people across the country with our restaurants. We began to reset the experience at all of the taverns. So Tunings was completely reset, King's Arms was completely reset, and then Christiana Campbell's was completely reset. And then when we turned to Tunings, what we discovered actually that in the kitchen, which is the oldest of the kitchens we have at the tavern, there were some things that made it prohibitively expensive for us to open that tavern at this time. So we turned to Shields, and we were able to bring Shields up and move the Tunings lunch experience to King's Arms. And so that is where one can get the historic lunch that was provided at Tunings. We are looking at a slightly different experience for Tunings, which we'll have more to say on in the next couple of months, but we hope that there will be some new life breathed into that tavern as we go into next year. I don't know, Ron, if you have any comments on any of that?
Nope, I think you summarized it beautifully, Cliff. The taverns are, of course, a way to get a meal, but they're also an educational part of our experience here. So we think of them as a terribly significant element of coming to Colonial Williamsburg, and we're so glad to have 3 of them up and running again.
Right. Thank you for that. Then, of course, a lot of focus is on 2026, but it turns out there's a 2025 in between too. What are some of the key things coming up in 25 that perhaps a visitor would want to know to time their travels here?
Well, Ron, why don't you talk a little bit about how we mapped all the things leading up to 2026 several years ago? I know we've talked about that previously, but it might be helpful, and then that'll set the context, I think, for the next 2 years.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was an interesting day right after the pandemic set in. The lodge was closed and dark, and so we sat down with a large map of the historic area and asked ourselves the question, what do we not have that we'd like to have in order to tell the story? And what do we need to do between then and 2026 when we celebrate 250 years of the Declaration of Independence? And so we began plotting out projects that needed research, restoration, reconstruction, and also plotting out programming that needed to happen in the anniversary years between 2020 and 2026. So 2025 is loaded with interesting programming that Gary can talk about in some detail, and we're bringing on buildings as well. For example, the gunpowder incident, which took place at the Powder Magazine, really kicked off the revolution here in Virginia. And our aim is to get the exterior of the Powder Magazine looking the way it did in 1775 in time for the commemoration of that remarkable event. Lots of other things going forward as well.
Right. Maybe, Gary, you can talk a little bit about the educational programming, because I know we have lots of critical dates that we mapped out several years ago, and we've got lots of educational programming that's going to come around those dates.
Yeah, that's right. So we'll have, and as Ron alluded to, in the spring, we will, of course, have programming that marks this moment that really catalyzes the moment from going from resistance to revolution in Virginia with the gunpowder incident. And of course, what guests discover as part of that program, of course, is this happens literally days apart from Lexington and Concord. So these events that sort of really bring about the movement to a full-scale revolution and the mobilization of revolutionary army and revolutionary governments start in that spring. So we'll mark that. We'll continue that in the summer with a focus on 2 things. George Washington, of course, at that point becomes commander of the Continental Army, and we begin raising troops in earnest in support of the entire continent, this first kind of unified American effort. And he will go north, of course, to Massachusetts to take command of that army. And also the collapse of government. So Lord Dunmore flees, and we'll continue that transition from resistance to revolution in the fall with some different explorations of freedom. So, of course, Lord Dunmore offers freedom to any enslaved person, any enslaved man who will fight for the crown, and the implications of that idea for Virginia. We'll explore those, as well as the raising of, Dunmore raises a regiment of foot soldiers who are those formerly enslaved people called the Ethiopian Regiment. So we'll explore that dimension of the revolution in 1775 as well. The question of freedom and what it means to different groups of people. So all of those things will help us set the table for what happens in 2026, when the focus will turn to Virginia independence, and then of course the independence of the United States, the Declaration, and the framing of new governments, a government founded on the principle that government should be accountable to the people and not the whims or direction of a monarch.
Yeah. And one of the things I hope that came through in Gary and Ron's comment, and I'm going to turn to Mia here in a minute, is how we have thought deeply about what happened each year historically 250 years ago. So for example, in 1774, that is the year when many people in the colonies began to think of themselves not as British. Maybe not as Americans yet, but certainly not as British. And so our iCivics game, Uncovering Loyalties, is really about where are your loyalties lying here. So we're beginning to think about ourselves as different people. And the timing of next year's game that will come out will be leading up to the Declaration of Independence and how it began to feel out of that movement. But we also thought about not just the physical places and spaces that Ron referenced, but what are all the digital assets and things that we needed. And so we've got quite a bit coming next year and beyond in that space too, Mia. Yeah.
We do, yes.
Yeah.
So I'm the lucky person who gets to think about how we take the power of this place, to use your line, Sonny, and bring it to the many millions of people who may never visit us physically. And our mission is universal, that the future may learn from the past. So we have been hard at work over the past couple of years laying the foundation for what Cliff likes to call an onslaught of digital content.
I think tsunami.
A tsunami, excuse me.
Yeah.
Tsunami that will be coming. Completely revised and refreshed colonialwilliamsburg.org, so our flagship website. It will bring together on one domain the foundation's site as well as hospitality. But the thing I'm most excited about the new site is it is rich with content. This place is full of stories. We heard some of them from my colleagues, and there are infinity more. And the new site provides a way to engage the general public in learning about America and the founding as it was experienced here in Williamsburg, and provides a lot of what I call productive rabbit holes for the web user to go down and just on these exciting paths of discovery. So the new website will launch in early 2025. As Heather mentioned in her interview, we'll also launch history.org to the public, our open beta, this coming summer, in time again for the 25-26 school year, so teachers all across the country will not have any kind of barrier to that content. We are developing a new, and my colleagues on the video team are here, creating this experience for all of you right now, and we are excited to continue to expand our video coverage of everything that happens here and think about our important interpretive pillars and how we can translate those into videos, podcasts, and other digital content. And then, of course, our second iCivics game will also launch in 2025.
Thank you. Yes, not all 330-some million people in this country can come here, so.
No, but in 2024, this year, it looks like we will well exceed 20 million people who will engage with our digital content, which is a fraction of 350, however many Americans there are, but it's a significant fraction, and we are completely confident that we will grow that number in the coming years, especially in 2025.
That's needle-moving stuff.
Yeah, it is.
And speaking of then letting people know about the work that goes on here, Cliff, you mentioned in your opening remarks about some of the media coverage we've gotten, including CBS Sunday Morning when Ted Koppel was here just some weeks ago. So what has been the impact of all that media coverage for us?
It really is, I think, heartwarming to see all of the people who are covering, paying attention to, and giving compliments to the wonderful people who deliver our educational mission every day. And I'll give the example of actually the Politico article. I could have picked many stories from across the year. Politico, for those you may or may not know, is a investigative journal, for lack of a better way to describe it, that spends its time talking about politics up in DC. And they sent an investigative reporter to spend 5 days with us earlier this year. Let me highlight investigative reporter, which means that they're looking to see what was the political bias or dimension in terms of the work we do at Colonial Williamsburg. And I think as all of you all know, as among our closest friends, that we are politically neutral. We talk about the facts, we talk about what happened, we want to stimulate conversations about it, but we are not going to tell people what to think about that work as it underways. And this reporter spent 5 days here in and about Williamsburg talking to many, many people throughout the community. And the close to this article, when it came out early this fall, was that every American needed to come to Colonial Williamsburg. That, I think, was very powerful to me, and I think very powerful to many of the people here, and a validation of the incredible work that we are privileged to do thanks to your support. And the coverage has, of course, extended far and beyond that. We've been on the Today Show many times, on the front page of the Washington Post, the front page of the New York Times, on CBS Sunday Morning, and in thousands of other publications across the country over the course of this year. The work we're doing, I would like to believe, is important, it's significant, and I firmly believe in the power of history to bring us together as a people, bring us together as a nation. That has been a theme in American history, about the importance of our history and the importance of making sure we all understand how we got here today and what does that mean for about how we address and deal with the problems that we have today. And this place, as we approach 2026, I think needs to play and must play an important role in helping us expand history and civics understanding both in person and in the online environment. And we're so pleased that so many people are paying attention to what we're doing and hope that stimulates other institutions to do similar and like work.
I think that's a pretty good way to wrap this up. Could not have said that better myself. Really want to thank, of course, all of my colleagues here on stage and colleagues across the foundation who do all this important work, but most importantly, I want to thank you all in the audience. It is truly your support that makes all this possible. It is the power of you in action. So thank you for your support. Thank you for your continued support. And if you have not yet made a gift this year, please do so. We welcome your support to be able to do all these things again next year and the year after and the year after that. So thank you very much, and see you here in Williamsburg again soon. Have a good evening.